Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs. Hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Going Native, written by Uncle Sealing. Going Native, Chapter 67. The thin robotic arm moved jerkily, attempting to match the movement of Samuel's haptic glove. The brush on the end of its Waldo scraped at the remains of an omnipod, gently dislodging soot and loose debris. A pop-up on Samuel's virtual window informed him that another user had joined his session. Hey, Quest. Have any trouble with the software? Nope. You write some very clean code. It was easy to port it over. A pointer appeared, floating in his view, and indicated the battery area. Looks like this was the ignition point. Yeah. I still can't believe those idiots did this. Samuel was still stunned at how staggeringly unprofessional some of the Shilvati spycraft was. It was like they didn't take humans seriously. Investigator Chelsea told me she wanted me to look at the remains, but she didn't explain what happened. Mind cluing me in? The interior pulled in this guy, one of the Cabal leaders. He had sold the assassins that shot Stace their hardware. When the Shilvati caught up to him, he immediately gave up. Let them arrest him, said that he would cooperate. Started answering questions. Questing for great truth's side. Thanks to the headset, it felt like she had done it directly in Samuel's ear, even though she was in her hotel room and Sam was in the planetarium. So they let their guard down. Yep. They asked him how to unlock his omnipod. He gave them a code to punch in. When they did, the damn thing exploded. Samuel tried to keep the amusement out of his voice, but he knew he failed. How bad was it? One of the agents lost a couple fingers, the other one lost an eye when a piece of the screen got her in the face. That was significantly less funny, but honestly Samuel kind of felt like it was a learning experience for the two girls. Don't underestimate the enemy. Ouch. The little brush didn't seem to be cutting it. Some of the melted components had formed a sort of sludge. He switched to a Waldo with a pick and started scraping more aggressively. Mind if I give it a try? The gear child sounded excited, and he couldn't help grin as he switched to a digital pointer and let her take control. Huh. Looks like my hack job coding went well. Her movements of the machine were smooth and elegant. Like they were a part of her. What did you say this thing was? It's a surplus surgical robot. I figured if we were going to be dissecting a bomb I wasn't going to be doing it face to face. It's in a cinder block box in the machine shop. How are you controlling it so smoothly? I rigged it into my kinesthesia interface software. Feels just like moving an arm. Samuel thought about it. Honestly, that sounds awesome. I wish I could do that sort of thing. There's no reason why you can't. Jemsai swore loudly in a mix of Shil, English, Dutch, and Japanese. It was an impressive show of linguistic ability, apparently so impressive that it attracted the attention of Toril from the next room. She made her way into his office, not bothering to knock as she strode in. Jemsai was at his desk, an imposing piece of oak furniture that was on loan from a presidential library. Cups, paper plates, drifts of paper, and tablets littered the thing. Toril moved to her husband quickly, stepping behind his chair and putting her arms around him in a possessive gesture calculated to help calm him down. One hand slid up to play with his hair, easily undoing the work he had put in for the perfect slicked-back look. It was a testament to how frustrated Jemsai was that he didn't have a wisecrack for her destruction of his grooming. He simply leaned back and sighed. What's the trouble? Toril leaned over Jemsai's shoulder, looking at the screens he had been working on. The trouble was immediately obvious. Prominent on one of the screens was an image of a planet, lush and green. Toril was one of the few people in the galaxy who could recognize it on sight. Nix. It's Jelsai's damn presentation. She wants us to read the painter people in on exactly why House Elent is trying to kill us all. There's no real reason for it, it's not like they can fix the situation. He let out a long sigh. But I guess I can see the point. It has to be stressful not knowing why people are trying to murder you. So now you're trying to figure out much to tell. Exactly. I just don't know where to draw the line. I could spend a week going into the underlying politics, but they probably don't want to know any of that. I could be vague, but that wouldn't do any good either. Toril considered his words. She was a bit of a pragmatist by nature. Jemsai had a habit of fixating on things, and part of her job as his wife and as a member of House Chelsea was keeping him on task and stopping him from working himself into a tizzy. Really, I think it comes down to an issue of trust. Do you trust the staff of the painter facility? Jemsai considered her words, then put his hands up to his face and wiped his eyes. There were tears of frustration there. I don't even know them. Sammy is crazy, Samuel is a former spy, Merin and Ella are both professional soldiers. The dear child has almost the right security clearances. Ian is a civilian, and Jelsai's new bedroom buddy Eustace is a complete mystery. I have no idea where his loyalties lie. Jel has spent more time with them than any of us, and she thinks they should be told. So, you trust Jelsai and Jelsai trusts them. Jemsai nodded at Toril's words. Then I think that settles it. It's not that easy. You know what will happen if this stuff gets out. And I know enough to know that none of the people we are sharing this information with are idiots. They are smart enough to know that nobody benefits if this stuff goes public. I don't want to be responsible for a galaxy-wide war. All because the pink skins got curious. Jem, do you remember the first time we met Sammy Painter? He snorted. How can I forget? You told me that Tiny Human was one of the single most dangerous people in the known universe. That if they were really focused, they could do tremendous damage to the Imperium. But you didn't want them assassinated. You said it was because you wanted a museum, but I think I know you a little better than that. Toril ruffled his hair playfully. Despite acting like a fop, my husband is devious. I think you have big plans for those hyper-intelligent monsters down there. You may be right. Jemsai's purple face contorted into a smile. So consider this a test run. Maybe they will find a solution to the Elent problem, once they have the appropriate data. I think I can do that. Jemsai nodded to himself. Yeah, I can. But what do we give them? That's easy. Give them all of it. Toril tilted her head down as Jemsai raised his own so they could look each other eye to eye. No scientist has ever complained about getting too much information. What you doing? Chandler jerked backwards, slamming his head on a piece of superstructure with a dull thunk. His omnipod slipped from his fingers and landed on the top-covered ground. Oh. Sorry. Didn't mean to startle you. I mean, I did mean to startle you, I just didn't mean for you to bonk your head. He looked down to see Sammy standing there, a heavy-looking tie-dye lab coat covering slacks and a t-shirt. They had already managed to pick up the omnipod and were peering at the screen. This was going from bad to worse. Sammy tapped the screen, then turned their back to Chandler. You're going to need to crouch a bit. He did as he was told and Sammy grinned into the front-facing camera, snapping a selfie with the pair of them in front and the assembly that Chandler had been trying to take secret photos of in the background. Thanks, Sammy. Chandler took the pad back and sheepishly slipped it into his back pocket. It's good to see you again. Erika says hi. Those green eyes opened wide as a smile split the physicist's face. Oh. They picked out a name. Yeah, she decided to go with what we would have named her if, well, you know. Chandler gave a lopsided smile back at her. That's great to hear. And how is Elliot doing? It can't be easy being, what is he now, 9? He's doing great. Honestly, things have all been pretty smooth lately. Chandler thought for a minute. Could he turn this conversation to his advantage? Did he even really want to? Are you guys going to be doing another Kung Fu film marathon soon? We're hoping to do one this weekend, since we have so many visitors. Have to clean the planetarium up a bit first. Sammy bounced from foot to foot. I'm so excited for Erika. Let her know I said hi, okay? I'm going to send her that selfie. She kept me up half the night the first night here asking about the spaceship. Oh. Sammy stopped moving as if they had been slapped. In fact, one slim dark hand came up to palm the center of their forehead in a classic Dewey gesture. That reminds me. You do graphic design stuff, right? Yep. Can you send me your fee sheet? I want to get some art designed for the sides of our space truck. It needs its name and our logo and all that stuff. Maybe some cool pinstripes. I'm sure I can come up with something. Chandler thought about it. Did you have a name picked out, aside from Space Truck? Of course. The Painter Observatory's first spacecraft is named the Necessity. Sammy threw their arms out and spun to indicate the craft they were standing under. Isn't it great? Give me a moment to figure it out. Sammy nodded and waited patiently while Chandler pondered the Necessity. Chandler got it relatively quickly. Once you were around Sammy for a while, you started to think like them. It's because Mother of Invention would be too small and hard to read. Sammy nodded again with an impish grin and started clapping their approval. Look at her. Isn't she adorable? A skull peered through the glass at the little animal in its terrarium. It looked so doofy. I've always thought crested geckos looked like they had just finished doing drugs and wanted to give you advice. He could hear the smirk in Stace's voice, even if he wasn't looking in that direction. That description seems needlessly specific. It seemed apt, though. It had wide eyes and a slight smile. Askel was vaguely reminded of his grandparents. Not that he would ever tell them that. Do you want one? They have everything here to set up a terrarium in your apartment. Stace, you are not allowed to spend any more money on me. Askel turned to the human with a huff. People are going to think we're dating or something. The way I see it, I'm helping to make up for how criminally underpaid you are. How? How do you know how much I make? I asked House Chelser about paying for your help myself, since you had been hired on my behalf. They sent me a copy of the contract and I about had a shit fit. Are you going to get my contract transferred over? He honestly wasn't sure how he felt about that. Stace was a good friend, and Askel didn't like the idea of a friend essentially owning his livelihood. It could complicate things, and as far as Askel knew, Stace didn't actually have a real source of income. He'd be eating into the human's savings. No, but you can expect a bit of a pay raise next week, assuming you sign the updated contract they are putting together. Askel nearly dropped the heat pad he had been holding in shock. I talked to Sammy. My new employment as part of the security staff was conditional on you being offered a job as the facility medic, with competitive pay. They thought it was a fantastic idea. This time Askel did drop the heat pad so he could run up and wrap his arms around the human. Stace awkwardly tried to hold himself up, and when Askel realized he was making the other man uncomfortable, he self-consciously let go. You didn't have to do that for me. He smiled up at Stace. I just wish you told me. I could have helped you out. The human blushed. Now then, did you want to keep looking at the lizards? I still need to grab dog stuff for Pom. Merin could feel the eyes staring at her as she pounded the heavy bag hanging in the corner of the hotel's new gym. Honestly, considering how much she had been teased for being small-chested and lanky her entire life, having a half-dozen human males from the construction crew drooling over her felt pretty good. Aang and the Sams had done wonders for her self-esteem, and all the time she had been spending lately trying to get back into fighting shape was paying off in a big way. While she would never be as big and muscular as Ellora, she had gotten rid of any lingering flab, and Aang had been nothing but compliments about what her kickboxing training had done to her ass. She was surprised to see Rena come into the gym and make a line straight for her. Her mother-in-law grabbed the bag to hold it steady. "Need a spotter?" The bag jumped as Merin stepped back and launched a brutal high kick. "Thanks." She threw a combination ending in a knee and waited for whatever Rena wanted to talk to her about. "So, that's Stace guy, eh?" Merin tried to pull her next kick in surprise, and the momentum caused her to lose balance, her planted foot slipping out from under her and the back of her head painfully bouncing off the rubberized floor. Rena stepped forward and helped her up, and a quick glance showed that those humans who had been staring were now surreptitiously looking away, smirks on their faces. "What about him?" Merin tried not to let her emotions get into her next combination. "Aang told us about his unique relationship with the man. I wanted to see how you felt about the whole thing." Merin stopped and sighed. "If we are going to discuss this, we need to do it with alcohol. I'll get cleaned up." One of the unused conference rooms had been set up as a rec room. Nobody was using it, thankfully, and the fridge was stocked with all sorts of alcohol. While Merin grabbed drinks, Rena stalked around the room, poking at the various games and entertainment devices that filled the rather large space. "What's this?" Rena was standing at a sort of open box on 4 metal legs. The inside had little statues of humans attached to rods that spun when handles on the long sides of the box were twisted. The short sides each featured a goal. "It's called fuzzball. You try to move a little ball into your opponent's goal by turning the handles." Merin passed a bottle over and stepped so the table was between them. Rena picked up the hard plastic ball and squeezed it between her fingers. "But the ball isn't fuzzy. It's hard. Who knows why humans name things the way they do?" Merin pointed at the little slot on the side of the table. "Drop the ball." With no more than that, the game began. Merin figured she would have an advantage, having seen the game before, but Rena seemed to have a bit more coordination, a surety of movement that Merin lacked. "So, like I was saying, Stace." The ball clacked into a net and Merin's side before sliding a score counter to Rena's side. "Yeah. Stace." Merin dropped the ball again and the game continued. "How are you holding up to having him around?" "Honestly, I just try not to think about it. He seems like a nice enough guy, but we don't know each other at all." Merin twisted a knob hard and the ball bounced, clacking off of Rena's side and popping out of the table entirely. "I just miss having my husband all to myself." Rena returned with the ball and slid it back into the slot, dropping it into the table. "I know what that's like. It seems like every time Alice picks up a new wife I slide a little farther away." The game continued. "How do you manage it?" Merin managed to pick up a point and even the score as Rena slowed down to consider the question. "Honestly, you need to be friends with the other wives. Even if it is weird to call Stace that." The ball dropped again and Merin spun her knobs, trying to keep the ball on Rena's side. "Eck. Like I need another male in my life," Merin muttered to herself. "Samuel? Or Sammy? I honestly can't tell which one's the male." Merin's hands froze and Rena used the opportunity to slowly walk the ball into Merin's goal. "Did I tell you?" Her voice felt faint. "Nope. It's just kind of obvious if you spend any time with the group of you. You're always following Sammy around. I'm their bodyguard." Merin huffed indignantly. Spend a lot of time looking at their ass for a bodyguard. Merin snorted in amusement. Wouldn't you? Granted. Rena grunted as she missed a block and Merin slid another counter on the score tracker. Earth is fucking weird. Yeah. It really is. Merin felt her face twisting into a grin. Worth it, though. End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff, visit and support the author, and I'll see you next time. If you didn't enjoy, comment on what I can do better. And as usual, have a wonderful day.